Oh boy, Dying Light 2. I almost feel sorry for this fan base right here. I almost feel sorry. The reason I don't really feel sorry, though, ultimately, is because there's already been news that this game was having trouble behind the scenes, which I will definitely cover that. But I did want to make a video about this because the game is actually scoring a bit lower than what I expected. I at least thought the game was going to get 8 out of 10s across the board. But that's not really what's going on. That's not the case. Looking at some of the major, the most watched and the most consumed publications for video games, from GameSpot to CNET to IGN, VGC, Press Start, Destructoid, all of this is it's pretty underwhelming when you take a look at the scores. Now, the one that's the lowest is obviously GameSpot. GameSpot has a history of, giving games low scores. This is something that they've been doing since 2013. Actually, probably, yeah, I'd say around 2013. They have a history with just, I don't know, shitting on games for some reason. Not that it isn't always deserved. In many cases, the games do deserve a lower score, but it's just strange that GameSpot is the one that usually sticks out. However, if you take a look at some of these other scores and whatnot, these scores aren't very high for a high-profile release for a game such as this that's been in development for as long as Dying Light 2 has, which is the real concern here. IGN is practically known for deliberately giving games, average scores, even if the game is well below average. Hell, in their video review, the guy mentioned that, they had a coworker or whatever at their offices who played through Dying Light 2. Because the game was so buggy, he ran into a glitch where the guy got stuck on the loading screen and his save file got corrupted and he lost all of his progress, literally within the span of minutes. And they showcased a lot of these glitches that the game has in their video review. Yet they gave the game a 7 out of 10 anyway. So really this 7 out of 10 is more like a 6 or a 5. But the real question is, what has actually gone wrong with Dying Light 2? Well, taking a look at the pros and cons from GameSpot's review in particular, they praised the parkour gameplay and the expansive, ability trees and whatnot. And they also praised the music and the overall presentation. However, the criticisms against the game include the story not being very impressive, the main character being very drab and boring, the final boss being extremely underwhelming, and the voice acting being pretty weak throughout. And I noticed that myself when I took a look at some of the the TV spots or the trailers or whatever that's been released online. And then there's also the bugs and the glitches. Technically speaking, the game is unfinished, and they're releasing it unfinished knowingly. They have a whole laundry list of different issues that they've outlined, and that list has been released online. Apparently, this day one patch or whatever is going to address the majority of those issues. But it makes you wonder, since this game's been in development for so long, surely Techland has had plenty of time to release a game that's, technically sound, but of course not, right? Another thing that was criticized is the combat versus the humans. Apparently, the AI controlling the human enemies in the game is very stupid and not very rewarding on the behalf of the player. And the combat system is actually pretty repetitive, which defeats the whole purpose of the skill trees that they have in the game. And last but not least, obviously, the stealth elements have been criticized as well. And some of these criticisms aren't exclusive to GameSpot. Some of these criticisms have been echoed in other reviews that have given, similar scores compared to GameSpot. So it's not really looking that great all the way around for Dying Light 2. Generally speaking, the game has a low Metacritic score for the type of game that it is, sitting at an average 7 unanimously, based on 45 critic reviews for consoles on the PlayStation 5 platform. And then on PC, the number has gone up, but of course this is only based on 24 critic reviews. Now, most of the time, Metacritic scores don't really mean anything at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, it's up to the individual to decide whether a game is for them or not. But if the game is truly infected, no pun intended, with game-breaking bugs and glitches, to the degree that's been echoed and reflected in all of these different reviews, I'm not sure, but I think that this is going to affect the game a good deal when it comes to the user score. So I believe this game is coming out on the 4th. So for anyone who's looking forward to this game, I would pay close attention, come February the 6th when the user score for this game comes out, and see what players are actually saying about this. Because, like I said, I've seen my fair share of the reviews for this. I'm actually kind of baffled as to, why this game has the issues it has, and it shouldn't have these issues at all. It's been in development for an extensive period of time. So really, there's no excuse. And again, it's not just an issue with the glitches and the bugs, but it's also an issue with the storytelling. It's an issue with the combat system. It's an issue with the way certain enemies have been designed, or lack thereof, it seems. The day one patch in particular is very concerning. Looking at some of these day one patch fixes, there's dialogues that block story progression. There's crashes when handling different parts in specific areas of the game. There's issues with lowering the difficulty level, for God's sake. There's issues with unresponsiveness, which is an absolute travesty for a first-person game such as this. There's issues with co-op sessions automatically disconnecting on their own by themselves. So I'm just kind of baffled at this. And it just makes me glad that I had no interest in this game in the first place. I wasn't a fan of the original Dying Light at all. I played it for a very short period of time and it just lost my interest. Definitely wasn't a game for me, but for those who are looking forward to it, well, at least now you know ahead of time before release, what you're really getting. That's the whole point of these reviews, is to, read and evaluate what the issues are with the product that you're interested in. And then you have to decide for yourself, if you're going to make the investment or not. And as I stated before, I wasn't lying. I don't lie in my videos. Dying Light 2, the development is a disaster, claims Polish website. And this article was released pretty early last year, May the 7th. I remember reading about this, but I never posted a video about it because I had no plans of covering Dying Light 2 at all, so I had just skipped it. But going back to this, it doesn't really surprise me that the game, the final product has all these issues and whatnot, when I was reading about some of the problems that were taking place behind the scenes. Some of the issues behind the scenes included a lack of direction in story and gameplay. Whoever the writer was for Dying Light 2, their script was diluted by top executives who wanted a more run-of-the-mill story and quest structure. And then there was a case of verbal abuse from top staff, just overworking the members of the development team, long hours of crunch, and apparently there were other issues as well. And then their public relations manager for Techland, Ola Sondage. So right here, she stated that the article was inaccurate and that Dying Light 2 was in good shape and in good hands. But that's not the case. That wasn't the case, clearly. And now we know that's not the case because of the reviews. She was just doing her job to cover up whatever mess was going on at Techland behind closed doors. This is why I personally do a lot of research on a particular game before, something releases. That way, if there are any red flags, I can say, yeah, maybe I'll just give it a rental instead, or maybe I'll just skip it entirely, which is something I've done in the past. One game in particular that I remember doing that with is Jump Force. I was going to get that game day one, and I had actually pre-ordered it, but when the reviews for it came out, I decided to cancel my pre-order and switch it to something else at the time. So it seems that for the people who are looking forward to Dying Light 2, you basically have a choice. Either you can support a broken, buggy-ass game on release now, or you can decide to wait. You can decide to save your money and put your funds towards something else that is more deserving of your time. It's really up to you. As for me, like I said, I wasn't planning on covering this game anyway, so it really doesn't matter to me. It is what it is.